Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to go over how to create a form in Excel. So forms can be useful if you're collecting data from somebody, whether it's a customer, whether you're doing a survey, or just any way where you want someone to easily enter information for you. So in this example I'm going to go over just a quick survey where you put in a rating, a comment, and leave just your basic information. And so what I'm going to do to start with is I find it easier when you're designing visuals or forms in Excel is to shrink the column width of all the headers, of all the columns down to 2. And this way it makes it a lot easier if you've got varying lengths of fields, because then you can just use merge cells to select how many columns you want it to be. And it's also easy to move things if you needed to. So for instance, you could just insert a column to push it a bit more to the right without having to worry about, okay, what length a certain column is. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is add some fields. So one of the fields I'm going to add is a name field, because if someone's filling it out, I'm going to collect their name. And I'm also going to collect their address information, city, what state they're in. I'm going to leave a bit more space for this section, just so that they can select from a list box, an email area, and whether it's okay to contact them. Put a checkbox for that one. A rating, and then a comment box. So a pretty simple form that you could use for a wide variety of reasons. And so because I've set these column widths to 2, it's really easy to pick a spot and say, okay, this column, this is where I'm going to start my fields. Right? So for the name, let's say I'm just going to select several columns here, merge center, and then to make this stand out a little bit, I'm going to use borders outside and use a light gray color just to make it stand out. Okay, and the one thing I'm going to do is also set this to be a named range. I'm just going to call it name, so that way once the results come back I can easily find out the value of the name field without worrying about what specific cell or what its cell address is. So name ranges can be really helpful here. So I'm going to copy this and do the same thing for address and also for the city. Okay, so I've got my named ranges in here. I've got name, address, and city. Now for state, what I could do is a drop down, and I'll show you both ways, a drop down and a list box. So the first thing you need to do is populate the fields. And I've already got a list of the state names. I'm just going to put them in here, and I'm going to call these state names. So now if you wanted to do a drop down box, what you could do is, let's say I were to merge here and go to data validation on the data tab, and for the validation criteria I'm going to say pick from a list, and it's equal to my named range of state names. And again, this is the benefit of using named ranges. You don't have to worry about what cells to include. And now from here you have a drop down, right? And so, but the thing is, this is maybe a bit cumbersome to go through, especially when you got 50 values in here to scroll through. And so another option, I'm just going to undo this, is to use a list box. And so if you don't have the developer tab present on your Excel page, on your Excel sheet, what you want to do is go to File and Options, and then just make sure that tab is visible. Right? So if I go to the developer tab, I can go to Insert, and next to the radio button there's this list box. If I hover over it, it says list box. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to create it over here for now. So list box right there. And so what I'm going to do is right click, form control, and for the input range I'm going to put state names. And for the cell link, I'm just going to say right here, this is where I want the value to go in. I'm going to hit OK. And now I've got a list of all the state names conveniently, right? And so now as I select, you see that this number updates. Alaska is the first entry, so it's going to have the number 1. ID for Idaho's 12th item, so it's going to show up onto here. Now, obviously, this is not going to be terribly helpful because I don't want the number. I want the actual state abbreviation. So what I can do here is, using an index formula, I can select the state names because I'm only selecting from this one column. I can use the index, makes it work pretty easily. The row number is, I'm just going to reference this value on here. And the column number is going to be 1 because there's only one column. And so now I've got the value. So now if I select CA for California, it's going to automatically update to number 5. And then this one is going to look up that value in this state list. Alaska set to 2. Hawaii is 11, right? So this works really easily. And the one thing I want to do here is set this to a named range of state, because this is the actual value that I want to pull later on. So I'm going to select this list box by right-clicking on it, and I'm just going to move it so it conveniently hides that information, and just resize it so it's in line with my other fields. And so there, now I can have a nice list box on here. And the benefit of a list box is, you can see a lot more values. It's maybe a bit easier to scroll through than a drop down, but obviously you can use either one. I just wanted to show you another way that you could do this. So next up, I'm going to do the email field. So for the email field, I'm going to use the same sort of thing with just a text entry here, and set this to named range that says email. So with here, you want to be able to have people enter in whatever they want. One thing you could do is add data validation to add controls to prevent someone from mistakenly entering something incorrectly. So if I go to the data tab, hit data validation, there's a lot of rules you can have, whether it's a whole number, it has to be a decimal, it has to come from a list like a drop down, has to be within a certain date range. I'm going to use the custom rule here because I'm going to create a formula. And what this formula is going to do is it's going to check that the email contains the @ sign as well as a period. So it's not going to guarantee that the email is spelled correctly or that it's valid, but at least it can try to catch for some common mistakes, just in case someone makes a mistake when they're typing it. So to do this, I'm going to use the equal sign. I'm going to use the AND formula because I need to have multiple conditions met here. So first, I'm going to start with, I'm going to use isNumber, and I'll show you why in a second. So the find formula, the find function, is going to look for the @ sign, and it's going to look within the email range, which, being a named range, is going to make it easy, and start from position 1. And so if it finds a value, it's going to return a number, and that's the point of this isNumber. So it's nesting the find function within the isNumber function to say if it's true, then that means there's a number, and if there's a number, that means the value was found. So another thing I want to do is isNumber again, find, and this time I'm going to put a period in email 1, and then let's close up all these formulas. So now, if I were to type, let's say abc@gmail.com, that works, no problem. But if I were just type abc, it's going to give me an error. It says it doesn't match the validation rules, right? If I did abc@gmail and I forgot the period, again, it's going to give me an error message. So I need to have everything in there at gmail.com. And another thing you can do with data validation, you can actually create custom rules. So if you have a certain error, invalid email, let's say, please enter a valid email address, right? So you can customize this however you want. So now if I go in here, just type in ABC, please enter a valid email address, right? And then you have an option, yes, no, right? So in this case, it would allow you to continue to put that through anyways, right? So that's the difference between having a warning, having just an information box, or having a stop. So a stop would outright actually prevent me from being able to do it, So if I try to get, again, let's say ABCD, now it's actually going to tell me, please enter a value notice and not accept my entry. So that's where you have a lot of flexibility there as far as how you want that error to show up. But whatever you choose, the data validation, it can all be set up on here, whether you need a custom formula or if you want it to fall within a certain date range or whatever sort of rules you want to set up. Okay. Now, the next tool I'm going to set up is OK to contact. So I've got someone's email address and I want to know whether they give permission to contact them. So I'm going to go back to the developer tab here. I'm going to insert, select the checkbox here, and I can set this perhaps right underneath this. That might be a good spot for it. What I'm going to do is click in here so I can get rid of this value. It's going to give me a checkbox text. There we go. So just a simple checkbox. And again, I'm going to need to right click. If I go to Format Control, I need a cell link. So on here where it's going to hold the value. All right. So I'm just hit a random one there. Hit OK. And so now when I click the box, it's going to show up on here. It's going to have value of true. So I'm going to say OK to contact for the named range on this one. And so I don't want it to show up. So what I'm going to do is I can make it a white font so it doesn't show up. Or I can show you another thing. If I hit Control 1 to go to Format Cells, I can go to a custom formatting. And if I just type in 3 semicolons, it's going to make it disappear regardless of what color it is. So that's another way that you can sort of hide those results. And realistically, you could put this named range somewhere over here that's out of sight and then hide all these columns. It really doesn't matter. I'm just showing you a couple ways that you can achieve the same thing. Next up is the rating. So for this, I'm going to use radio boxes, right? So let's say we want someone to rate their experience on a scale of 1 to 10. So I'm going to go back to Insert, hit a radio button, and again, let's make it pretty small here, not terribly big. I want to get rid of this text in here, so I'm just going to click in here. Right, radio option. There we go. So now I've got a nice radio option there. Now what I'm going to do is hit Control C and copy this, and I'm going to just put these in the next sort of cells here. Now the tricky part with this is sort of aligning these to make sure that they show up exactly where you want them to be. So what I can do is I guess I'll space these out a little bit, but the point of this is you just want to be able to create as many radio buttons as you need and then just space these, right? So for now, this just has to be manually, and I'm just right clicking to select them to move them all over. So this is where the grid lines can help you a little bit to sort of position it to make sure that it's in the right spot, right? So, and what I can do above or below even, I can put the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, right? And so I can see that number 6, I need to move over a little bit, right? And then I can do, right click, copy, and that's the easiest way to modify these controls is to right click on them, because I don't actually want to click on them, right? So again, this is going to be item number 7. Just move this over a little bit there, and obviously I'm just going to try to focus on speed here just to get these as quickly as I can, right? So that's going to be the 9th one. And the one thing you're going to want to do is pay attention to how you copy these over, because they're going to follow the same sort of sequence. So this is the 10th one I added, so this is going to relate to item number 10. And so the one thing that I'll also want to do is select all of these. Hang on. So just to make sure I've selected all of them, format object, and I'm going to select the same cell link because they all relate to the same value. I'm going to, let's say, relate to here. Hit OK. Okay, and now if I select item 1, it's giving me a first one, second one, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. And if I've got them all mapped, yep, so it all works well. Center these numbers. And so this is why it's important to pay attention to the sequence as you're adding them, because if you have the 10th one here and you put it all in here, then it's not going to line up nicely, right? So then you might get some unexpected results. So again, I'm going to hide this one. I'm just going to use the white formatting. And so now I've got a scenario where I've got, actually one thing I forgot to do, rating. So we want to make a named range for all these items, because otherwise it's going to be tricky to try and get all this information, right? So the last section is going to be the comment box. So this is where I want to have someone be able to type in whatever message they want. So I'm going to make this plenty big. Merge center. Again, let's hit that field, highlight it. But the one thing we're going to want to do is, because if I just have a comment without formatting this properly, it's going to start at the bottom, look a little silly, right? This is my comment. I loved my experience, right? The problem is right now that doesn't look nice, right? That doesn't fit nicely in here. So the one thing you want to do is hit the wrap text button and also align this so it's in the top left corner. So now when I were to type, and I type this in again, it starts naturally right at the top, right? And so it can flow all the way to the bottom. My rating was a 10 because I loved it. There we go, right? So it all fits in there nicely and easily wraps around. So that could be an easy way to set up a comment box. You don't have to do anything special besides just making the field bigger. And then I'm going to hit select this as a named range of comment. So now you could just add a title on top of here saying, you know, my custom form. You know, let's do merge and center. Right, let's bold it. Right, and then if you send this off, you'll probably want to hide these columns. It doesn't really matter. Right, and now you've got a clean form. What we may also want to do is obviously get rid of the grid lines. Right, so it makes it a lot cleaner. If you're sending it to someone, you also don't need it for them to see the headings or the formula bar, just so it's a lot cleaner of a layout. Now, if you actually want to store these results on another sheet, let's say there's an output sheet, right? So the one thing I would want to do is, let's say name, address, city, state. Let's create some fields for this: name, address, city, state. And then what I can do is, using my named ranges here, I can set this to name, right? Set this to address. This is city. This is state. Let's say I've got email. Goes the email field. OK to contact. Equals OK. And the good thing about named ranges is it automatically can remember what you've selected. So let's add rating and comment as well. Okay. And then you've got comment, which you'd probably want to leave as your biggest field. So how you could make this work is potentially, let's say John Smith, 123 Fig Street in, you know, any town. Email address is abc@gmail.com. And now I've got values for all of these fields. So one way that you could make this work is, as you send these results as you send these forms to people and you get them back, you can go back into your output tab, which you can make hidden, and, you know, copy this, paste it into a larger database where you're collecting all these results from. Another option could be, if you're manually entering in these fields, you know, your data entry person, or you have someone who's going to enter this for you, then another option could be having a macro post all these results and automatically make this list bigger as you add on to it. I'll cover how to do that in a future video. And And on the link that I'll leave below, you can actually download a template on there that has a macro that'll do that. So it has a post button where you can click that, and it'll push the results onto here. But if you're sending this one at a time to a person or to different people, then probably you're going to want to have an output tab that's maybe hidden, and then when you get the results back, just do a copy and paste into another file where you're holding all the other results. That's probably a bit easier because you're not going to send off your entire database with the form. That's kind of pointless. So it depends on what you're doing here. Like if it's a one-off entry that you're having someone else enter, then I think probably just having one row of outputs that are linked to those named ranges, that's probably ideal, and you copy that into somewhere else. But if you're a data entry person, you're going to enter these results multiple times, and you want the output to be your database, then that's where you'd want a macro. But so there's a lot of different ways that you can make these forms work. And if you go to the developer tools on the insert, there's a lot of different options you could do. Like there are, you have scroll bars that you could use for values as opposed to having someone enter someone in. I mean, you could do your ratings as drop downs if you don't like the radio buttons. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can do this. You've got combo boxes, which is again similar to a drop down. So there's a lot of stuff that you can play around here as you experiment this. Whether you use a form control or an ActiveX control, not going to make a huge difference. And so I just wanted to show you in a nutshell one way that you might be able to create a form in Excel to use for your data collection purposes. So hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching.